I'm Ryan Lathan, Director of Marketing and Communications, Fort Worth Opera, and I'm so excited to be here with nationally acclaimed composer and librettist Héctor Armienta, musical mastermind behind the upcoming world premiere of Zorro, part of our historic 75th anniversary season. Hi, Héctor, how are you today?
I'm well, Ryan. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. First time that
Is.
we've met on Zoom. And looking forward to, yeah, looking forward to meeting you in person.
Me too, me too. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, tell us about the origin of Zorro, the opera, and your inspiration for adapting this 101-year-old pop cultural icon's tales for the stage.
All right. Well, a little history about that. So there are three works that I've been wanting to finish within the next, 5 or 10 years. The first was Bless Me Ultima, which was produced in 2018 by Opera Southwest. The second one is Zorro, and the final one I want to do is La Muerte. So Zorro has been just on a list of pieces that I wanted to work on. It's based where I base it in Los Angeles, where I grew up. And there's just a lot of cultural relevance for me. And I also enjoy doing work that I can, whenever possible, to incorporate history. And it's just it's a fascinating story. It's just, it's a kind of the comic book hero that some of us grew up watching on Disney, and then all the movies that have been made. And there's a passionate love affair, great villain. So I'm excited. I'm just excited about. I was just excited about the story.
You're both the composer and the librettist, which I guess is kind of a rarity within the worlds of opera and musical theater. What is the typical process for bringing past works of yours to life, and how was that any different with the creation of Zorro?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, because I never envisioned myself, when I started as a composer, writing the libretto. And as Mark Campbell can attest, writing a libretto is daunting, challenging, and doesn't always go well. But in my early years, when I was studying at the conservatory in San Francisco, I studied with Conrad Sousa, who wrote Dangerous Liaisons. And I had come with him with sort of my first full chamber opera that I was developing. It was called River of Women, part of my trilogy. And he had me study for a year Shakespeare to understand drama. And from that, I just sort of decided that I wanted to develop my own librettos. It gives you, as a composer, as a composer, you have conversations with the librettist. And there's always that question of, which comes first, the music or the words. So for me, I wanted to, develop the libretto first as a composer. So my process, that's a long answer. You can edit it later.
Great.
Okay, but my process is that I will start with a 2 to 3 page synopsis. And then what I'll do is, as I'm writing the synopsis, I'll identify what I think are the aria moments, the dramatic moments. Then I do a scene by scene. Then I write the libretto. And then then my next step is that I think about the music. At the same time, thinking somewhat about the music, but I don't spend as much time on it. So I'll take out a piece of orchestra paper, and for each character or each mood, I'll use. So for example, for Zorro, so on orchestra paper, I'll write down what the themes are, what the motifs are, outline somewhat of the harmony. And so I'll do that for each character and each element. I would call it element. So maybe for the element might be about, danger or fighting or love. And I'll put them all on the floor. And then I'll see, looking at a puzzle, which pieces, how it all fits together. Then I make modifications to that. So then the next step is that I will then have that as a reference as I'm writing the piano vocal score. And then I'm able to make changes to the libretto as needed based upon the needs of the text. I mean, the needs of the music, I should say.
Right.
That was a long answer, but yeah, that's my process.
No, it's great. Thank you. As a musician and a writer, and you're also the founder and artistic director of Operacultura, which, for those who don't know, is a really well-loved Latinx and Hispanic opera company in San Jose, California. What continues to inspire and ignite your creativity?
Operacultura started initially as a platform for me to develop my work. You know, this was, uh, I think we're now in our 12th year, but before that, I had another organization, and it was challenging, you know, as a person of color, as a composer, to have my work performed. So I started Operacultura initially for that purpose, as a platform to develop my work. But it has grown quite a bit from that because we are the only professional Latinx opera company in the country. We're part of Opera America. I'm on the board of Opera America. And also we do a lot of work in education. We have a new program called La Escuela, which is focused on people of color, training young people of color as performers, but also technical theater. But it's also, it's also important to me because it's an opportunity for the community, the Latino community, the Latinx community, to see people like them on stage, to see people like them working behind the stage, and to tell their stories. So one of the projects we did recently was Mi Camino, which was focused on the lives of farm workers during the pandemic. So, and I see it as part of, my legacy. I expect I'll do maybe, be with Operacultura another maybe five years. And I really hope that it will continue and be a voice for the Latinx community.
In regards to Zorro, what do you hope that audiences will take away from this world premiere when they see it?
I think a couple of things. With the music of Zorro, I'll start first with the music, and then I'll talk about the story.
Okay.
I'm a Mexican American, and back in the day, we called ourselves Chicano, and we are multidimensional individuals, and our music is vast. And sometimes when people think of Mexican music or even Mexican American music, they think of mariachi, which is an important part of our legacy, meaning Chicano legacy, Mexican American legacy. But we do more. I never thought I would be an opera composer. It just seemed the best vehicle for me to do my work. And in Zorro specifically, I draw on a lot of musical idioms, which include mariachi, also include a bulería, which is a Spanish style flamenco piece. There is also a corrido, which is sort of the way that it's usually in 3/4 the way we tell stories in music. But then it's also very it draws on Eurocentric art form, and I try to as best as possible draw on particularly Verdi and Puccini, who are my idols. So I hope that musically they will see that Latinos or Latinx draw from many musical wells. I could go into a whole history about Mexican music, but we draw on a lot of places. And then also, I think from the libretto, from the standpoint of the libretto, is I set the work in 1814, which was the beginning of when I would say the embers of revolution started to happen in Mexico. And part of that is because of what was happening in Spain politically. So, and there's some historical references that draw on what was happening in Spain and how it permeated into what they called New Spain, which was Central Mexico Central America, South America, and of course, Alta California, which is what they used to call California. So the listener, the viewer, will get a sense of the vastness of the musical palette, as well as the history of our people.
Now that you've marinated with the piece, and I'm sure it's continuing to evolve. Do you have a favorite scene or an aria or a duet in Zorro that really resonates with you? Something that you believe, I guess, captures the spirit of the opera?
Yeah, that's a hard one. We all have our favorite children,
Right.
And I wrote Zorro in a very traditional neo-romantic style. So there are arias. I mean, I'm hoping that people remember melodies as they walk out of the theater. That was the intention. That was my specific intention with Zorro. And there's one duet called Abrázame, which is when Diego / Zorro is with Ana Maria, the love interest. They grew up as childhood friends, and she doesn't know that Diego's Zorro. And Diego is of Spanish lineage. That's his story. And Ana Maria is a mestiza, which means somewhat of mixed blood. She's European and indigenous, like myself. And the challenge for her is how can the Spanish world accept me, a mestiza? And he basically says love conquers all. And so in that duet, he's convincing her, and then it ends with this beautiful sort of dovetailing of a melody, I think. And I think the audience will really like it. I think it's a crowd pleaser song.
It's gorgeous, yes.
Oh,
yes.
You've heard it. Okay.
I've heard it, and it stays within your mind, let me tell you, long after it's been played. So it's really, I can't wait to hear it live. Very excited.
Yeah, me too. You have some wonderful singers. As you know, I interviewed some of them, and one of them I've known for quite a while. So great casting. So very exciting.
Very excited. I thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, Hector. Thanks for sharing your time, your stories, and your amazing energy with us. And so I'm looking forward to meeting you next month officially after all these years. It'd be great.
Me too. Me too. Looking forward to meeting the Fort Worth audience.
Definitely. So speaking of opera lovers out there, don't miss your chance to witness the world premiere of Hector Armienta's swashbuckling adventure Zorro, January 26th, 28th, and 30th at the Rosemarine Theater. Visit fwopera.org to secure your seats today. Thanks again, Hector. Have an awesome day.
A pleasure.